back to Brian's Beat.
Sunday mornings, but you're still a cartoon. Did you watch Davy and Goliath? I think that was claymation at its best right there. Hour 2 of Brian's Beat. Glad to have you on the program today. Man, so much has gone on in the week since we last talked. Let's get to the Brian's Beat quote of the day, brought to you by monthlyfeerx.com. You could get all of your meds and have them delivered for one small monthly price. monthlyfeerx.com. Our quote today comes from Greg Allman, singer, songwriter, keyboardist, guitarist with the Allman Brothers Band, and a group called the Greg Allman Band. Here's his quote. "I've come to the conclusion that I'm not supposed to be married." I don't know when he came to that conclusion. After the third, the fourth, Greg Allman was married numerous times. I don't know when he decided. He had a girlfriend before he died, but I don't think they were married. He's come to the conclusion he's not supposed to be married. If you didn't hear me during hour number 1, and I understand you can't or you don't want to hear me all the time anyway, but I was at my high school reunion, and one of the guys from the football team, I was having a conversation with him, and he got to the point of telling me he had been married 5 times. 5 times. I just looked at him, and he looked back at me like, well, you don't believe? Well, I'd known that he was married 3 times and that 2 of them had failed. But I guess in the 15 years since the last time I saw him, he must have got married a couple of other times. And wow, can you imagine getting married 5 times? Okay, so that's out there. I wanted to talk about MCAS because we do have an election coming up 1 month from today. And one of the ballot questions deals with whether or not MCAS should be a graduation requirement. And I should say it like this. Should you have to pass? Should high schoolers have to pass the MCAS in order to graduate? Now, I'm bringing this up today for a couple of reasons. A, it's a pretty hot topic around the Commonwealth. Maybe not as hot as what presidential candidate ate for breakfast or what sneaker one may have. But this is something that the yous and I's can vote on. So I have made light of the fact that I had my 50th high school reunion 1 week ago today. And I ran into I shouldn't say, I walked in and I was having a conversation with one of those I haven't seen, to the best of my knowledge, in the 50 years that we've been out of school. His name is Rob. I will keep his last name to myself. But I went up to him. I haven't seen him in 50 years. And you know how people change over that period. I know I have. So I said, so what's going on? And he goes, well, I'm in the process of selling off all of my companies. And he had mentioned that he had already sold off 4 or 5 and he still had 2 or 3 left to go. And he had amassed 7 figures in doing this over the years. He was in hair care and hair products type of a business. I didn't get into all the details, but I could see that he was well off and he had nice hair. Now, let me tell you about Rob. I met him in 7th grade. We all went to the same junior high in 7th grade. And in 7th grade, he was a fighter. I mean, a big-time fighter. I don't mean prize fighter. I mean beat up. He was known as either the toughest or the second toughest kid in our class. By the time we were freshmen in high school, we did not go to the same school in 8th grade. But by the time we were freshmen in high school, he was the ringleader of a gang. I kid you not. Now, our gangs in high school, probably like your gangs in high school, they settled things with fights. They did not go around shooting folks. They didn't go around, well, they may have done drugs, but they weren't really going out and selling drugs. But this guy, Rob, I mean, he was they were known as the Zoo Crew. Go figure that out for a name for a gang. But, I mean, they were tough. You didn't want to mess with them. So, I bring this up because Rob wasn't one of those that used to make all of his classes. There were a couple of classes that Rob got an F in. But he still managed to graduate high school. And I bring this up because it doesn't matter today what your grades are or what you did on an MCAS test. It's how you fare in life. And I lump this in with the chronic absenteeism. Kids may not like what's going on in school right now, and for whatever reason, we don't seem to look at what's going on inside the school to try to ascertain what the problem may be. Whatever the problem is, it seems to emanate outside of the school. We never seem to test to find out maybe something is going on in school. And MCAS would be one of those things. One of those things people don't want to study for that. Those that are going to do well, they'll do well, and they just end up taking it because, hell, we got to take it in order to graduate. Or if I do well on this test, I might get some CLEP credits toward college, so I don't have to take English or rudimentary math when I head off to college. That's what the system is doing at this particular time and has been for roughly 25 years to entice these kids to take the test. There are people that I work with here that got money skimmed off their tuition because they performed well on MCAS. And as I mentioned before, there are students that because they did well on the MCAS, I guess it's proficient or whatever is the next step up from proficient, that they didn't have to take English and or math, entry-level math in college. They get credit for that. So it's not, that's fine. If you want to take it because you want to take it, that's great. But to make it a high school requirement for graduation, absolutely not. And so I have been a huge opponent of MCAS, and in fact, the Education Reform Act of 1993, since 1992, when I first found out about the act, and then it became law in 1993. So I'm going to urge you to vote against it. I'm not going to tell you not to. But I urge you to vote against MCAS being a graduation requirement. 508-996-0500. So that's out there. We brought up the nuclear thing and Donald Trump during our first hour. And, of course, this guy, Edmund Charette. There was a fire in 2021 at a restaurant in Leominster. Charette is seen on fire, jumping out of a window of that building. He had on his clothing a menu from the Chinese restaurant melted on his clothing. And video seems to show him with a gas can. So I don't think there are too many people arguing about the guy being at the scene, and maybe he's the one who done it. But he has been declared by a judge and by psychologists, psychiatrists, that he is mentally incompetent to stand trial. So this guy was shipped down to a federal medical center in North Carolina. And a psychologist down there has written, and here's the quote: competency to stand trial can be restored with the appropriate treatment with antipsychotic medicine. Mr. Charette has refused to accept recommended medication treatment on a voluntary basis. And so what prosecutors want to do for a guy who set a building on fire in 2021, they want to force this guy to be medicated so he can stand trial for arson. Do you think that that's okay? Do you think we should go down that particular road? Or do you think that's a real slippery slope? And I think it's absolutely slippery, more slick than ice. Because if you can do it to a guy like Edmund Charette, what happens when the next person wants to refuse drugs for whatever reason, whether it's trial or whatnot? You're opening up a Pandora's box here. Let's hear from you. 508-996-0500. Good morning.
Hey, Brian. Good morning.
Good morning to you.
Your quote of the day. He finally realized he shouldn't have got married.
You think?
You know? You know what compelled him to? He ran out of money and he ran out of air.
Or maybe he ran out of drugs for all those years.
Whatever. Or ran out of whiskey. I don't know.
Yeah,
but that's what it is. You're talking about MCAS.
Yes.
To standardize all children. And, this is like an assembly line. It's unfair and it's not right. And it's not a barometer for intelligence and intellect. This is just for the politicians to get up on a soapbox and pound on their chest and say, hey, look, we're doing something to change it around so they can come up with some kind of percentages. That's all it is. It's political.
Do you think, and I'm asking this as a question, I don't want to pretend I know the answer. Do you believe that states get paid extra money for the amount of people that they have taking the MCAS?
They probably have. You probably get more federal funding for the number of children that they have graduating from high school. That could be a possibility. But I would think that some of our elected officials wouldn't pass the MCAS. So if they don't pass that, should they be in political office?
Well, why? I mean, if you and I are agreeing that it's not really a barometer of what you're going to be like after you get out of school, then why can't you be a politician?
Well, I'm just saying, if you're going to use the same measuring stick with the children or the young people, then we should use that the same thing for some of these people running for office. They take an MCAS. You know, if that stays as law, then they should take an MCAS, and if they fail it, they can't run for office.
Well, I think we have people that are serving in local government that had to take MCAS because MCAS has been around since 1998, I believe, and so they would be in their 30s, I would believe,
and
maybe their 40s
before that. Let me just quickly touch on the 5 questions that are going to be on the ballot. Question 1 is state auditors' authority to audit the legislature. Question 2, elimination of MCAS is what we're talking about, a high school graduation requirement. Question 3, unionization of transport network drivers like Uber and Lyft. And question 4 is limited legalization and regulation of certain natural psychedelic substances. And question 5, minimum wage for tipped workers. But on that psychedelic stuff, to me, I think that should have never got on the ballot.
Why? They got up the signatures?
And Section 79, I had a chance to read this booklet, and I have to read it again. It's just 10 pages of a lot of legalese. Section 7, lowercase a. This is regarding the Psychedelic Substance Commission. One's going to be chosen by the governor with a background in psychedelic research and science. Another one's going to be appointed by Attorney General on the background of public safety, and one going to be appointed by the treasurer, corporate management of finance and securities, and then you're going to have another one with a majority vote, also chosen by the governor as well. This is all about making money. That's all it is.
Well, it's one of those things. It's like medical marijuana. I think that this is just step number 1 in order to get it legalized totally.
And you know something, too, Brian? Section 80, that's the Natural Psychedelic Substance Advisory Board. It says there in the capital D, affordable, equitable, ethical, inclusive, and culturally responsible access to natural psychedelic services and requirements to ensure access to regulated natural psychedelic substances is affordable, equitable, ethical, and inclusive and culturally responsible. Could you imagine that? Ethical? Having people driving around high as a kite?
Well, I don't know that. I think they're going to end up taking these psychedelics at a facility. I don't think they're going to be driving around.
Oh, you never know, Brian.
Well, there might be a residual effect, but they're supposed to be under a doctor's care while they're doing it.
You know, and one of the vocabulary words in this book is called cultivate, and their definition is means the growing and cultivating of natural psychedelic substance. In other words, to promote it and to push as much sales as they possibly can. So
you don't think it means cultivating as in growing your own?
Growing and also pushing for the sales. In other words, to increase the bottom line, to try to sell as much as you possibly can. But my concern is it's going to be first it's for medicinal, and this can quickly turn to be recreational.
Okay, and I think that's what's going to happen down the road. But I think it comes back to the question, do we want people driving around like that? We certainly don't. And there'll be laws against it. We already have laws on the books to stop that from happening. But the other side of the coin is, do we throw people behind bars for doing it? And I say
they're
absolutely
doing it now.
not.
You know why? At the end, there's on page number 38 of this booklet, it says the initiative petition would also establish a tax rate for the sale of these substances by licensed facilitators, whoever that is. But the manufacture, distribution, dispensation, and possession of these substances remain and would remain illegal federally. So it's still a federal crime.
Yeah. Well, not only will it be illegal, it will also be illegal to do it recreationally.
Yeah. The proponents are Dr. Franklin King of Harvard University, and you also have Mass General Hospital, and you have Dr. Vaughn Gersaint of the Dana-Farber Cancer Institute. He's pro-legalizing drugs. And Angie Albies, a manager of the Oregon Services section of the Oregon Health Authority. So this is and John Hopkins.
So the state of Oregon is getting involved in Massachusetts politics.
Absolutely. Yeah. And
All
John
right.
Hopkins University.
All right, man.
Matthew Johnson, PhD.
Well, no, but at least. Oh, okay. Well, John. Well, yeah, I get you. All right. Hey, thanks.
You know, I'm going with this, Brian.
You're not voting for it. That's where you're going with it.
Absolutely not. But there are those. In other words, the machine behind the scenes that are trying to push.
Yeah,
this,
I think there is a machine. I think there is a machine behind it. I'm not sure that this is going to pass, at least not this time around. I do appreciate your call. Thank you very much. Let's continue. 508-996-0500. Hello.
Hey.
Hey.
How you doing?
Winging my wang.
That's all you ever do.
You know what? And it feels so good.
So I'm going to actually kind of piggyback on the previous caller. I thought a lot of the stuff that he was saying was interesting in regards to the psychedelics. You know, when we're talking about an individual and what they want to do, what they want to have, whether it's alcohol, psychedelics, marijuana, I don't care. If you want to actually take that stuff and it doesn't harm another person, have at it. Have a great time. Have a great trip. As long as you don't harm other people. If you don't affect my life with what you're doing, it shouldn't matter. There shouldn't be laws prohibiting you from doing it. Very simple.
Oh, I wholeheartedly agree. And not only that, our laws would put you behind bars. Now, part of that is the government can't keep up with it because people turn around, they know folks want to do it. And so now you've got people cultivating and turning around and selling it, and the government's not getting its tax money from it.
Yeah, well, that's your biggest problem with your government is they're just looking for a way to get revenue and increase their power and increase their influence over your life with different and bribe you with different programs like all the programs that we have. And they're like, well, if you don't do this, we're not going to have money for this type of program anymore, and we're going to have to start charging you more for this type of service. It won't be free anymore. So,
well, it wasn't free in the first place.
Yeah, I know. I know. So in regards to that, like, if I would go even, I mean, this is going to be real controversial, and you might not agree with it, but drinking and driving, right? I remember back in the 80s when they finally made it illegal to drink a beer while you're operating a vehicle. A lot of people are saying, why can't I have a beer when I go out when I go out to the local hardware store because I'm working in my yard and I just wanted to grab a beer, or I grab a beer on my way home from work and I just sip on it on the highway. You're not drunk. It's still illegal to be drunk and driving, but to have a beer while you're driving, why is that illegal? To me, it seems ridiculous, right? If you really think about it. So there's already a law on the books that you can't be drunk. What is the difference? This is the question I have.
What is the difference?
To the point real quick.
So the difference is, by the way that you put it, and I think correctly so, there's a difference between having a beer and not being drunk and driving, and being drunk and driving, whether or not you are drinking at the same time.
Right. So here's my point. And this is a question for those who are against drinking and driving. What is the difference between me having a beer in my backyard and then literally hopping in my car and driving within 30 seconds? I'm not drunk, or having that beer while I drive to the same store. What's the difference? There is no difference.
We got it out there. Hey, thanks for the call.
You got it, bro.
508-996-0500. While I agree with what the caller was stating, I think you're going to be inside your grave before anything like that ever changes. 508-996-0500. Brian's Beat on WBSM. Yes. Ken Pittman coming your way after Brian's Beat today. 508-996-0500. MCAS. And I think people started bringing up, well, for a couple of reasons, I brought up the ballot question dealing with MCAS, and that led a caller to talk about all of the ballot questions, including one where we get to decide if it's okay for medical mushrooms. Medical mushrooms. Maybe that's a good way to call it. Medical mushrooms. Are you down with that? What about medical peyote buttons? I've never tried either. But I know them all. I used to watch people in college, and I thought to myself, who wants to throw up to have a good time? It just didn't make sense to me. Maybe it does to some others. And I got to bring this up again because it's been gnawing at me since I first heard it, and now I've got the visual of the paperwork. Yesterday, candidate Trump was in North Carolina. And, I guess I'm going to bring it to you this way. Does this win him votes or lose him votes? He made a comment about something that President Biden stated. Basically, President Biden was cautioning Israel not to attack Iran's nuclear facilities. The response from Donald Trump, isn't that what you're supposed to hit? When they asked him about the question, the answer should have been, hit the nuclear first and worry about the rest later. Wow. If I was undecided, and I've long since not been undecided, that would certainly spin my dial away. But what about you? I mean, do you worry so much? I worry about our troops in the Persian Gulf area, our troops in the Mediterranean, our troops on the ground in Syria, in Iraq, and even parts of Israel. And I think we even have folks in Lebanon. If Israel attacks nuclear facilities located in Iran, don't you think that is going to make Iran just a little upset to the point that they may turn around and do the same thing to Israel and maybe blame the United States and maybe come after us? Don't you think that this opens up such a can of worms that we are definitely looking at a regional outbreak, a regional war in that area? So I come back to you. I know a lot of people are going to vote for Donald Trump, and all the power to you. But this is what he said, the direct quote. When they asked him that question, the answer should have been, hit the nuclear first and worry about the rest later. Now, I said it in a question mark. It was a period. Whew. I would love to hear Kamala Harris's response. Two responses. One response dealing with Joe Biden, President Biden, who cautioned Israel not to attack the Iranian nuclear facilities. How does she feel about it? I would like to hear her response to that, and then her response to Donald Trump's response. Man. And then, of course, this other thing, I just been at me. When I first read this story, I think it was on Wednesday, about Edmund Charette. We've got prosecutors that want to forcibly medicate this guy. He's mentally ill. He's mentally ill. He has been declared incompetent to stand trial. And prosecutors want to force him to be medicated so he can be competent to stand trial. Now, I don't know. I'm not a medical expert. I'm certainly not an attorney. But there's got to be some kind of divide line here where we say, hey, this guy has already been found incompetent. We certainly don't want him out on the streets. Let me tell you about this guy. He did some crime around 2018. And he was behind bars. And during this time that he was behind bars, he was at Devon's. They have a medical center there. He was serving time for pleading guilty for firearms, lying on firearms application. There's a video that shows him threatening to throw milk cartons of urine and feces at anyone who came into his cell. It got to the point where corrections officers had to, put on the gear, and they had to forcibly tackle the guy and put him down. This is how bad this guy is. He was out on parole until shortly after that fire in Leominster in 2021. Well, he's not out on parole anymore. He is incompetent. And this is somebody who needs, at least for the foreseeable future, he needs to be behind bars until there's a time when he can stand trial. I don't know that time ever comes, but in this particular case, we got to find a bed for him. But what the prosecution wants to do seems to go beyond the pale, and here's why I say that. If you forcibly medicate this guy so he can stand trial, not for his own benefit, but so he can stand trial, what's going to happen to the next person who may not be as deranged but doesn't want to take the shot? You've opened up Pandora's box. And what are you going to do then? This is what our country is becoming. And this isn't a Donald Trump, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, Barack Obama thing. This prosecutors, these guys are not elected. They're not the district attorney. They are hired by district attorneys. And they're pushing the envelope in this particular case. You want to comment on this?
Sure.
All right, hold on. Let me see if I got you correct. Try that one. No, try that one.
4, yeah.
Yep.
Well, I just think you're going to artificially condition him to face trial. People are found innocent because they were off their meds long enough. We've all seen the homeless off their meds and probably why they're homeless. They're not really responsible for their actions in a lot of these cases. I don't know this particular one, but it seems to me that if you're going to drug him to be competent to face trial, that's artificial.
It's artificial. He sits there and, all right, so he might be found guilty. He might not be found guilty. In fact, as you say, he might be found not guilty by reason of insanity, right? Is that the proper?
Right.
Yeah. He's already incompetent not to stand trial.
You're going to chemically straighten him out artificially so that he can stand trial.
Exactly. And then what happens after that?
Yeah.
I mean, does he go back to hoo-hoo? Or do we keep him drugged up? And then what happens when you throw him behind bars?
Well, it sounds like he needs to be in a hospital.
Well, that's where he's at.
Yeah, but I mean, it doesn't sound like he needs to be behind, in Walpole or something.
Well, he was at Devon's before.
Yeah.
That's where he threatened to throw urine and poop at people. And then he's at this place down in North Carolina right now. And this psychologist says, we can make him competent by feeding him antipsychotic drugs.
Right. I can see, forcing him to be sedated or to be less of a threat through medication, but not to face a trial.
It's not for his own good. It's for the judicial.
But it's not. It's not justice. You've got somebody who's sick, mentally sick, and unaware of their own actions, it just seems to me you can't artificially
You're not
create
supposed to anyway.
a scenario where this guy can face trial if it's not his natural mind.
Oh, but I guess it will be his natural mind when they drug him up. And so, okay, so let's take it to the next step. We've got this case right here, and then you have the ballot question dealing with allowing people to take mushrooms in order to relieve their anxiety. To be like medical mushrooms.
It does create a more interesting marsala sauce.
Yeah, to say the least.
But it really, this is almost a gift to the defense, because if I'm the defense attorney, I'm thinking, so you're acknowledging that this guy is chemically imbalanced and that you're going to have to chemically balance him so that he is sane enough to face a trial. That's an admission by the prosecution. I wouldn't be surprised if the defense uses that.
So the defense, I think, again, I'm not an attorney, but I think the defense is playing it very smart right now, not saying a word.
Right.
Not saying a damn word.
It is an admission.
You think?
Yeah.
That's what it sounds like to me. Now, if I'm the judge, what am I thinking? Because the judge makes a decision here.
Well, the judge is an attorney. The judge understands what he's just acknowledging.
But aren't there ramifications for the judge? Couldn't the judge go up against some judicial board for saying it's okay?
Oh, could he face consequences?
Yeah.
I suppose this thing will, either way, if he's found guilty, this thing will be appealed and won at some point. It's just not how justice works. You got a prosecutor who's acknowledging this guy's not really faking it, but we want to get him healthy so that he can face the conviction. Even though if we don't drug him and keep him chemically imbalanced, it's not fair to us. It's crazy. It's a crazy resolution on his end or her end. I don't know who the
I don't know
is.
if it's a male or a female. It just says it says prosecutors. So there's more than one involved here. It's an arson case.
I think they already lost if that's the case.
Well, they haven't had a chance to go to court.
No, what I'm saying, I think it's already over. They've already acknowledged this guy's.
Oh yeah, that one judge has already said he's cuckoo. But I guess there's a time limit on how long you can stay in it. Oh well, the psychiatrist or psychologist went into court and testified that he was. So the judge then made the ruling.
Well, why wouldn't a psychiatrist be involved here?
They were. So this is another step. The first time for this guy Charette, he was found incompetent, so has been in federal custody, waiting some kind of trial or whatever, and so he was moved down to North Carolina, where a psychologist wrote some kind of paper basically saying that, well, we can make him competent by, feeding him these drugs.
Well, a psychologist can't do that. A psychiatrist can. Only psychiatrists can.
I'm just telling you what it says here.
Yeah, but he or she would be seeking outside help from that doctor because psychologists can't prescribe medicine.
I tend to agree with you. I don't know what goes on in this day and age. You can if you are a physician's assistant.
I know that's the difference between psychiatry and psychology.
Yeah, well, that's the way it used to be, and I'm not saying you're wrong. That's the way I know it. But I guess what I'm trying to say here, if the psychologist is also a physician assistant, then they can prescribe drugs, and it gets checked off by whomever the attending physician on top of her or him is.
I don't know if that's a good question. I don't know.
Wow. I guess I'm sitting here, October 5, 2024, 1 month away from Election Day, and I'm talking about this story, and I'm thinking, have we morphed to the point that, hey, well, we need to get a conviction so bad that we're going to drug a guy.
You got to move the goalpost.
So he can be competent.
This is moving the goalpost for sure, right?
Oh, my. 508-996-0500. That's how you get on Brian's Beat. That's Ken. He's on after me. Welcome back. 508-996-0500. You can also use the app chat through the WBSM app, as Not Bad down in Oak Bluffs has done. Trump's response to attacking a nuclear facility is exactly why I cannot support his candidacy. In case you heard, President Biden earlier this week cautioned Israel not to attack the Iranian nuclear facilities. Trump said, "Isn't that what you're supposed to hit?" When they asked him that question, the answer should have been, hit the nuclear first and worry about the rest later. Ken, you got a comment?
Yeah.
Knock it out. Well, don't knock it out.
Well, first of all, I don't think anybody should be saying what they wouldn't do. A president shouldn't tell the enemy what they wouldn't do. I think that it'll keep them guessing. And I think the Reagan approach is better than the Carter approach, and we're seeing a defined difference here. Iran has been looking to take out Israel since Israel has been created, right? Since the 1979 revolution anyway. And they have financed the Houthis. They have financed Hezbollah. We can argue about whether or not they financed the October 7th attack. The timing is interesting that once they get their billions of dollars back, Hamas has plenty of munitions and resources to do all this stuff. But either way, Iran is determined to take Israel out when they think they have the...
Israel is determined to take Iran out.
No,
yes, they are.
No, as long as they're a threat, why wouldn't they?
Well, who says they're a threat? I think that...
who does? Iran.
Iran says they're a threat
to Israel.
And Iran also says Israel's a threat to them. It sounds like they're both threatening each other.
Well, I've taken a side, Brian. It sounds like you have too, to me.
Well, I mean, I know what I see.
Yeah, Israel is not a threat to Iran. Well,
wait a minute. Let's look at... What do you mean, hold on? You hold on. No, go ahead.
Is Israel a threat to Saudi Arabia?
I don't think so, not at this particular time.
Is Israel a threat to Iraq?
Yes.
Jordan? Oh, to Iraq?
Yeah.
How do you figure?
Well, they already lobbed some stuff over there already.
Wait a minute.
Yes, they did.
Wait a second.
Yeah, during the April period.
To Hezbollah?
No, ISIS.
Okay.
Because ISIS is still there.
Oh, good for them.
Good for them being there, or good for them for lobbing
ISIS.
over there?
Hitting ISIS.
I don't know that they did.
Well,
I don't know that
you
they
brought it
did.
up.
No, I said that they have attacked. I didn't say they hit them.
Well, they're attempting to to hit ISIS?
I think right now Israel is attempting to hit whomever they want.
No, I don't think that's...
Yeah, well, I mean, they went up to Lebanon. Hezbollah was firing back. In fact, Hezbollah said to them, when you stop going after Hamas, we will stop attacking you. Same with the Houthis. And during that ceasefire period that they had, I believe it was in the end of last year, beginning of this year, you notice there was no fighting going on.
1 year ago today, was Israel attacking Hamas?
No.
Right. How about October 7th?
Was Israel attacking Hamas? Hamas went after Israel.
When Hamas
7th.
went in and murdered children and elderly and all these...
I think that's been disproven.
What?
Yes, Ken, I keep on telling you, look,
No.
every time I tell you, keep on look, you look, and what do you find?
Well, I find that you said the Iron Dome was not that effective.
And did you think it was? I got to go. Okay. Let me finish this up on your show.
Yeah.
Time for me to get out. ABC is next, then Ken's going to take over. We'll take your calls. He'll take your calls after that. Adios, amigo. Next Saturday.